Okay, so this video we're going to talk about the basics of balancing a chemical equation. And the reason we're trying to balance chemical equations is because we talk about acids and bases as reacting in specific orders. So understanding how that um, balance and ratio of acids to base work helps us understand how acid rain works. So the fundamental principle here is that equations must be what is called balanced. And we get this idea from the law of conservation of mass, stating that atoms cannot be created or destroyed during a chemical reaction. So this means that any atom we start with, we're going to finish with, and any atom we finished with, we must have started with. So that means that the number of atoms on each side of the reaction must be the same. Let's take a look at this particular equation, the reaction between sodium oxide and water to produce the strong base sodium hydroxide. There are a few numbers here that I want to draw your attention to. There's a little 2 that represents a subscript right after the symbol for sodium, which is Na, indicating that there are 2 sodium atoms on the reactant side. Now, if we look at the other side, we see the sodium atom and we see a 2 in front of it. Well, that also tells us there are 2 sodium atoms or ions on that side. So on the product side. So there are 2 on the reactant side, there are 2 on the product side. If we look at hydrogen, there are 2 hydrogens on the reactant side in the form of H2O, and there's actually 2 hydrogens split up on the product side. One uh, one is with the hydroxide molecule, and that 2 in front of it says that there are 2 hydroxides. Now, we see here that even though it's split up into 2 separate compounds, there are 2 oxygen atoms. And if we look on the other side, that little 2 there indicates that there are 2 sodium hydroxides, each of which has 1 oxygen. So if there are 2 sodium hydroxides, that means there are 2 oxygens. So this brings us to the idea of interpreting coefficients and subscripts. A coefficient tells you how many of the substance, the molecule or formula of the substance, are in the reaction. Whereas a subscript tells you how many atoms of each element are in the substance. Sorry, I'm missing the little substance part there. So back to our original equation. Sodium oxide plus water yields 2 sodium hydroxides. The subscript right there, that little small 2, tells me that there are 2 sodium atoms. The 2 in front of sodium hydroxide means that there are 2 sodium atoms or 2 sodium hydroxide molecules as a whole. There's 2 whole molecules there. We put a 2 in front. It's sort of like in math when we have 2x, that means there are 2 x's. Now, this will become more important as we practice balancing equations in class. Remember, this video is just to kind of introduce you to the idea, but there is another idea that I want to draw your attention to. When we balance equations, when we're determining the ratio of one thing to another, the coefficient can change, meaning we might have 2 sodium hydroxide molecules or 4 or 6 or however many, but the subscript won't change. Sodium hydroxide is always Na, 1 sodium, 1 oxygen, 1 hydrogen. Regardless of how many of them I have, they always have the same subscript, the same ratio. So hopefully that gives you a beginner's guide to why and how we balance equations. And in class, we will actually practice this. If you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I want you to have a great day.